So this is, I actually have been having some fun. These are not, I'm not looking at a subject, but if you have leaves and you have subject, you're welcome to have any kind of, inspiration. You could look at your computer with some pictures of leaves. But what we're going to do today is just kind of get in this mode of greenery. And we're going to just make, if you have a sheet of paper about, this one is, I'd say 9 by 12. And I want it to be loose. I want to be able to rotate it. So get a sheet of paper, about 9 by 12. Get your paints out. Have an assortment of blue, green, yellow, any kind of watercolors. Like I just have my paints in one of these little trays. In fact, I'm going to try a bunch of different ones. I've got some schminky watercolors. And I love this set. It's the Jean Haynes Daniel Smith palette, and it has this gorgeous Cascade green, which is it's like a green-blue combination. It has a lunar blue, which is a really subtle blue, but it's just a nice floral. If you do a lot of florals, this is a very nice palette. Of course, this didn't come like this. It came in tubes, and I put them in this little Altoid type tin tray. I also thought I'd try some mineral pigments, just because it'd just be fun to try. But have a little bit of assortment of also maybe raw sienna or bird sienna as well for your stems. And also, if you have a lot of brushes like I do, this is only the beginning of my brush collection, but try getting out all of your round brushes, whatever you have. If you only have one, that's fine. A round brush is what we're going to be using today. And these are all just different kinds of round brushes. So I'm just going to try those. And with your, we're going to start, of course, you need water. I always have two. I like to have two containers. One for my cools, one for my warms, or just one for dirty, one for less dirty. However you want to set your little table up. Now, what I'm going to do is, I'm going to try to, I think I'm going to open up my camera just a little bit so it's farther away so you can kind of see the color mixing process. What we're going to do at first, before we even start the color, is we're going to just get our paints, get some assortment of lots of color, some greens and blues. And I'm just going to put a lot of these in my palette and have them ready. This is the Cascade green. And I'm not going to mix them I'm not going to mix them on the paper. I'm going to mix them. Actually, I'll mix them on the paper. That's what I was trying to say. Let's see if we can get everybody muted so we can go on there. Okay, so I want to just get a nice amount of green, and got some green. And then I'm going to try this green Apatite. It's more of a yellow green. I'm going to put that in a different well. And just, I want to have enough to really get my paper full without worrying about trying to get some color out of the pan, because it takes a little time sometimes to get your colors activated. So I'm just going to do a little yellow. This is nickel azo yellow. It's a really beautiful green toned yellow. When it's actually thinned out to almost just all water, it's pure yellow. But when you see it saturated, it is kind of greenish in color. So that's a gorgeous color for leaves. But let's not only do yellows and greens, we can also shift into the blues as well. Have a little turquoise, because you really don't want to just have a leaf that's one color. I've got a little turquoise in this well, and I'm going to put a little, let's see, some quinacridone sienna, just a little bit, maybe here. I'll have it. And if you don't have that, like a brown, any kind of brown color, like this is more of a burnt sienna, and I'm just going to put a little bit in that. And then I'm going to add a little blue. Let's see, what can I add? Some indigo, maybe a little indigo. If you don't have indigo, ultramarine blue would work. Any like a phthalo blue, which phthalo blue is a little strong, but it's still a good blue. It's just a little strong, so you don't really need as much when you're working with phthalo. It's just really strong. So, and also just don't forget a little bit of a violet color. We'll just throw a little bit of a violet also in there. But mostly our focus will be mixing up or having lots of greens in our palettes, in our color, however you want to do that. If you have a glass plate, anything you have, and some yellow as well. So there we go. I've got kind of my green leaf mix, and I'm now going to start, we'll start practicing now. So what we're going to do, this is a fairly large sheet. This is, like I said, it was a 9 by 12, but if you have a smaller sheet, that's fine. What you want to do is we're going to get in the mode, and this is where if I had music and I can hum, but I don't think you want to hear it. If you have your own music though, and you want to play some music, that would be really great. We're going to try our brushes out, get the feel, always practice before you start a painting on your full, if you're doing a painting to give away or to sell or to just admire, you want to practice. And I find just a scrap piece of paper, but I use, this is the Fabriano watercolor paper. It's really inexpensive. It's not my fancy stuff, but it still works. I've got something to practice with. So just take some green paint, and I want you to just go make some stem shapes or fine lines with a curve. And I'm just going to start on one. I've got to give myself room. Make sure you give yourself room to rotate your paper. This is really important when we're doing this. So give yourself some elbow room. If you have a lot of things around your elbows, kind of move them out so you can use your shoulder as your pivot. Instead, and if I could show you, if I can get in here, I actually pivot, my hand it's actually from the shoulder rather than my wrist right now. That's really nice. It just gives you nice, loose freedom of motion. So let's start with a medium tone green. Doesn't matter what color, which green you have, just a green. We're going to start making little stems. And I'm going to they start with a curve. So let's start. Oh, and another trick is have a rag nearby. If you find that you have way too much water on your brush, just dab it off, or too much pigment. Sometimes you can have too much, and it just makes especially if you're wanting to try a thin line, it makes it really difficult to get thin lines with a lot of water. So let's just start by making a curved line, kind of a nice, like a stem, just as thin as you can get with your brush without having it disappear. You can also right now add a little darker color just at the bottom while it's still wet, and at the top just to sort of accentuate it. Let's do this again, except going in a different direction. We're going to do let's rotate it and then go in a different direction like this. We're going to go through our paper and just create little curvy stem lines and trying in different directions. Just get this feel with using your arm and getting some lines, and get used to how fine the brush goes. Now this one is just a number 10 Princeton Aqua Elite round brush. It gets pretty, nice variation of lines, but just try different strokes like this around your page. And rotate your paper. This is going to be a practice, but it will also be a finished painting, sort of, depending on how it goes. It doesn't matter. This is no pressure on this at all. So I've got about 8 or 10 strokes. I kind of feel what this brush is going to behave like. If you have a different brush, let's say you want to try one that's smaller, take another brush and do the same thing. Just see how it behaves making lines. And this one is a number 6 round. This is a Princeton Neptune. And this one has a softer hair, so it's going to be a little different. But I'm going to try a couple of lines here too, just to see. And having them go in different directions. And longer and shorter. I didn't do that, but that's okay. Here we go. Longer and shorter. And just using that shoulder as a pivot point. So now we've practiced some stem lines. I'm just going to make little tiny twigs, sort of going off the branch here, off the stem, just like this. Just try that, and then also you can even try little tiny ones like this, just to get some control over your brush and see how you want that to be. And you can make them slightly curved, because in nature the stems are definitely curved and twigs are curved, usually not always straight. Take your brush and go at the base of your branch and just emphasize it a little bit and meet up with those little twig lines that you just made. And if it's still wet, those colors will all blend together. You can even drop in some color if it's not drying too fast. Mine is drying really fast. So just make some twigs and then kind of get a little heavier weight as you go down on the end of your stem, and then just kind of bring it up and to a light place. And you can always reinforce or darken your lines, brush strokes, just by going over and kind of making little glazes and layering over. If it's dry, that's okay. So do this on a couple of those just to get a feel for doing that, trying that out. So let's do this again. I'm going to take my little, I'm going to make a little twig coming out of this branch. And I'm just curving it ever so slightly. And it doesn't have to touch it, by the way. If it doesn't have to touch the stem, it can just be off a little bit. Just a little twig comes off, or a little, I guess that would be a twig. And I'm just going to just leave it at that. And then I'm going to strengthen the stem just a little bit. And I'm just going to thicken it at the base and bring it up. And maybe also bring these, thicken just at the base of the stem and the twig to give it that kind of natural growth line, like just slightly thicker. I don't know if you can see that. I hope you can. And this is really where you just have fun. And I'm going to try a little offshoot here. So I'm just making some twigs and stems. And this is actually preparing for the leaves. Normally, though, if I'm doing this in a painting, I would just do the whole thing from start to finish. But this is just strokes, so you can try different things. And you're mastering the strokes before you start your painting. So get some more color, green, browns, whatever you want, and do it again, the same thing I just did on another branch or another line that you made. So I'm going to do this one over here. I'm going to just take it, I'm going to bring it out, curve it, and I'm just going to make a slightly thicker, I'm just kind of angling at the bottom here, making it slightly thicker. And then I'm going to do the same thing. This time I'm going to alternate. And I'm going to probably too thick there, but it's okay. This is maybe, I'm actually going kind of tight, actually, more tight than I should, but I'm just trying to get the feel of how these branches will look. And I'm going to thicken the base just a bit right here by just kind of widening it at the bottom and moving up a little bit. So I've got like 3 little branches going now. So now the next step is let's practice some leaves. We've got some branches that are pretty straightforward. You just want curves in different directions. And leaves. Now these are the fun parts. I love making leaves. It takes a little practice. So that's why you've got a practice sheet going. Using your brush that probably holds the most amount of water is the best for leaves. Whatever you have, though, please just use. I'm going to try different ones. I've got this number 10. This number 12 is kind of it's a different kind of brush. It doesn't really hold enough water, so I'm not going to use that. But you want to have brushes that hold lots of water, like these little squirrel mops. Those are beautiful for doing that. But any round brush with the soft hairs will be your best bet, whatever you have. So I'm going to just use this number 10 round just because I used it before. And the first thing I'm going to do is practice some leaves. And I'm going to practice them anywhere random on this page. It doesn't matter because I'm not going to try to make a picture yet. I'm going to just do it where there's some open spaces right now. Or if you want, you can practice it on the end of your little branch, which I could do that too. So here, I'll just do this one. So using this little stem area, I'm going to go in with a medium amount of green, perhaps a little yellow. I don't know if you can see that. And I'm going to take my brush. This is where you want to you use the tip of your brush and you just lightly start at the tip. If I can go slow motion, this is not easy to go slow. But you start with the very tip and then you move it and then you press down with the belly of the brush and then you lift up with the tip. And so you've got this beautiful shape here, and I can even put some more color right in this little spot while it's still wet. I can I'll put a little blue in there just to darken it and give it some dimension. And then what I could do, that's one leaf, that's a simple leaf. These can be done, and I'll do some more of these just to kind of show you as I go along the stem. I start with the tip of the brush, very tip, move it, and then press down, and then lift up. Really just lift up. Now, I went kind of straight here. I didn't really curve it at all, but that's okay. Now, if it dries, like mine's just dried because it is so dry here where I'm at, I'm actually putting more color in the base, and then I'm trying to get it to move where the wet area is, but I'm not seeing that. So I'm just going to bring that and blend it lighter, just adding water. And then there I've got that kind of light area here. And I could drop some more color in here just to give it some dimension. Next one, try another leaf. This time we'll do it on the other side. And this time I'm going to make a curve. I'm going to rotate my page just a little bit. I'm going to start right at the base, just right at this little spot here, just below this last beginning of the leaf. And I'm just going to take it and start out with the tip and then try to move it around a little bit. There we go, like this. Now that was so light you could barely see it, so I'm going to have to do that over. I'm just going to bring it down and then boop, make a curve. And then if you want to take your brush and just kind of, fine-tune that line or the end, give it a nice sharp point, you can do that too. So you can create bent, curved leaves and let those colors sort of blend together. So now I'm going to reinforce. I've only got 3 leaves on there, and that's fine. I'm just going to take where this water is, right at this part here. I'm just going to take this and bring it down and just reinforce the thickness of that stem. And I'm going to go a little thicker down at the bottom so that gives it some weight. Plus, that kind of is in nature. It starts out thicker at the bottom, and it kind of thins out as you go higher. Kind of like the way I've been going lately. Thicker at the bottom. So you got a first little section of leaves, and you can keep practicing along this if you want. You can even go a little bit more. Just take some lighter green, and I'm going to do a little more curvy one here. I'm just going to start, and I'm going to start it with the point, and then I'm going to press down with the belly of the brush, and then just lift. And I can kind of slightly twist my brush a little bit, and while it's still wet, add some color or add some green if you want it to be more dense and colorful. If you want it to be soft and pastel, that's good too. It all looks good. Add a little bit of another color, some indigo, whatever you want to give that dimension while it's still wet, so that those colors can kind of dance together. And we've got 4 leaves now on this one. If you were going to go this way, I'm going to do just one more, so there'll be 5. So we'll have an uneven amount. I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to just take my last one. I'm going to fill up. I'm going to make sure my brush has plenty of color. I'm just going to start with the point and then just press down with the belly and then lift up. Now this takes practice, so don't be discouraged if your leaves aren't turning out exactly the shape you want them. It all is very dependent on color, on your paper, on your brush type, and the amount of water you put in your brush, or amount of color and water. So this one is a totally different looking leaf. It looks like it's from a different plant. That's okay. I'm just going to kind of unify it a little bit. There we go, like that. You can keep working it. I'm going to go one more time. Start with the thin brush, and then I'm just going to curve it upward just a little bit, just to change up the direction of the leaf. I'm just going to add. It's actually better to go a little lighter than too dark. Actually, more water is better when you're doing this. And just for fun, I'm going to add a little bit of brown in this one. If you want your leaves to be kind of more fall-like, which I'm already looking forward to that time of year, you can add a little bit of your burnt sienna or umber, and those will give you some fall colors. So this is one little type of leaf. And now I'm going to try with the same brush. I'm not going to try another. I'll try a different type of leaf. Now, this, I'm going to try it with just any strand, but go in a different direction so you have your leaves going in different directions. Let's try some a rounder, more a round type. It's a two-stroke leaf, I think I'm going to call this. What you do is you start your, wherever you're going to start your leaf, if you've already made a stem, you're going to start by with using the tip of the brush, the tip just like you did the last, but we're going to go in a curved, we're going to go curved on the outside, but we're going to stay straight on the inside. I don't know if you saw that. I'm going to do that again. I'm going to actually reinforce this so you can see it. What's going on, there you go. See, we've got the curved, it's basically flat on the center and curved on the outside. You can, and you're going to do the same thing on the other side. You can use a different color or one that's similar or just whatever you want to do, but you start with the same thing. You start and you want to go out, but you want to stay straight on the inside. So you're going to basically bend your brush so that you want your hairs of your brush to stay straight on the center, and you want it to curve out and then come to a point. So you've got this more fat, beautiful leaf with a little line on the inside. We'll try this again. I'll do it again with a little darker color so you can see it better. Let's see if I can grab a good green here. Got so many great greens. This one I'm going to try that mineral color just to see what happens. So I'm going to try, I'll do this again. I'm going to do it this time. I'm going to do it kind of coming out this way. So I'm going to take, I don't have a stem this time, but I want you to see a little bit more clearly. I'm going to start with my point, and I'm going to just push it outwards so that my outside is curved and my inside stays straight. And then I'm just going to I'm sort of twisting it a little bit when I do that. And I'll reinforce that just so you can see. And you could always do that by going in, and that was sort of straight. That's kind of the mission, is to try to get it straight and go curved, and that's just by how you press your brush. I'll do the same thing with this side. I'll start at right at this bottom of the base of the leaf, and I'm just pressing outwards, but I'm leaving that center part straight, and then I'm just lifting my brush up. So now I've got this really beautiful shape, and I'm going to throw a little bit of blue in there because it's so pretty. Just a little bit of blue. If you use a Payne's gray is another gorgeous color to use to make that darker, to make the bases of the leaves a little bit darker. That's that shape kind of leaf. Now I can go ahead and add my little stem. I can do it after or before. It's all depending on how you want to do this. You can add the stem afterwards. I'll do this again. We'll do one more in that style. It's a really fun style, and it's really more spontaneous. It's loose, and you don't want to be too tight about it. So I'll make the stem first so you can kind of see. I'll make this little stem coming out like this. And now just take that tip of your brush and push down and let that kind of spread outward and leaving that center part flat. You can just make it come to a point. And while it's still wet, add a little bit of color. It's like mine just dried out immediately. Wow. So when that happens, just keep moving it until you get to a wet area. And if it doesn't, you're just going to have to blend it out and maybe add a little water to it. So you can see now the construction of this leaf. It's halfway done. And now I'll take the next color and I'll do the same thing. I'm going to start it at the base. I'm going to press outwards, but I'm leaving that center part in it, and I just made mine go way out, but that's okay. It's kind of fun. It's much looser that way. So this is that style of leaf. And then we can come back to these later and add details if we want, but you've got this style. And now let's do a fern type or long leaf. And I'm going to use this stem that I made right here for long leaves. Now you can do it with these. If you can just do it with the same brush if you want, or try a different one. But I'm going to do it now a greenish blue color because, I don't know, cool ferns, I think. I'm just going to try a little bit more. If I can find a good blue. This is a phthalo blue. If I can find a nice, so many colors, and I don't know where they are. That's more of a Payne's gray. Okay, found one. So Payne's gray being, it's kind of a bluish gray. And that one is a beautiful color, especially if you use it really pale. But today I'm going to go a little darker because I want you to see the line, the stroke that I'm doing. So I'm taking this piece right here, and this is going to be my long leaves. So I'm going to start my first leaf, and we want a slight curve to it, but I'm going to start with the tip, and I'm just going to make it long, but I'm not going to push it down too far. I'm just going to just slightly push it down. You can see I've got this shape, and I'm going to just drop some color into each end to let those colors come together. Okay, I'm going to do it again. I'm going to take my next leaf, and I'm going to bring it kind of closely to the last one. And I'm just starting with the tip, and I'm going to press slightly, but not too much, and then bring it up. And same thing, just add some color, and if you want to add length, go for it. I'm going to do the same on this. I'm just going to go ahead and go down the length of this. You can curve it a little bit, make a slight curves, but keep that leaf pretty narrow if you can. Kind of just keep that narrow and add your color or your darker color at the base of it while it's still wet, so that that color will just shadow that leaf, which is really a nice effect. Okay, I'm going to do it again. I'm going to add a little, just using my Payne's gray, I'm mixing it with a little bit of green. And I'm going to do the same here. I'm just going to make a thin leaf. I'm going to start out with it right here, and I'm just going to press very slightly to make that long leaf, and then lift up at the very end, and then just darken those, shadow those edges. This one just dried immediately. I guess I didn't have enough water on it or enough color. And you'll know when you have too little water, it just doesn't happen. So I'm going to do the same thing. Let's say I'll do one more or two more leaves. I'm going to go press down. And you can have them cross over if you want, or touch. It's okay. You don't have to be, and I'll just go quicker now. Let's see if I can get a better. There we go. And I'll do it again. I've got a cat that's having a fit. Just a moment after I show that. Okay, so that's one side of your fern-like plant, and you can go thinner too. If you want your leaves to be even thinner, that would be. But this is a nice move. It really works. These are very effective looking. And what you want to do is just do the same thing on the other side. So this was the center leaf, and I'm just going to bring on this side. I'm going to do the same thing. Just make those long leaves by pressing into the, just ever so slightly, not so much as you did with the rounder leaves. Just use lots of water. Remember, water's your friend. Watercolor. That's water is first. You can add a different color if you want to just drop in some turquoise, or if you want to make it more brown or more natural, you can add a little bit of sienna, or just, or you can be crazy and add purple, something that you would never see in a leaf. But actually, you see more colors in leaves than you think, than you would know. I mean, if you just look, some leaves look just green, but some of them have some amazing variations. So I'm just going to go ahead and do some thin and go a little faster here, because that's about how fast you want to go. And now this one, I started out a little bit thick, but I'm going to correct it a little bit. It's always good to take your paper and rotate it. If you don't feel comfortable with a stroke, you can just rotate your paper, and that will loosen you up anyway. And it also keeps you from being stuck in a certain orientation. And then it really makes for a much more interesting painting when it's all done. So it's just going to add some different little drops of color here at the bottom. And so that is the practice of the fern style leaf. So let's do, we've got long ones, we can go even longer. Let's do little small ones. Remember one of these little guys that has like lots of small little, we want little fun little shapes. And this, I'm going to use the same brush stroke, same brush, I mean. But this time I'm going to do something a little different. I'm not even going to push the brush. I'm going to just use the brush as the pattern maker. And what we do with that is you just take a brush and you press it down and just press it down to make the pattern. You fill it with the color, and now you just make a variation of marks with just by laying the brush down a little bit on its belly and an angle. So you start with the corner towards the stem and just lay it down, and you get this neat little oval kind of teardrop, opposite of a teardrop shape. And you can do it, you can vary the sizes by just how much you lay it down. So you can kind of control the look of it, and you can add color or darkness to it if you want. Here, I'm just doing trying different things. And I want you to try them too. So here's the end. I'm laying the brush down, and I'm just going to lay it on its belly just a little bit. And it's creating this adorable little shape. And I'm going to go I'm varying it about 5 different times, different directions. You can see on the ends. I'm going to do the same on every part of this branch or these little twigs. I'm just going to lay it down. And if you have plenty of color, go for it. If you want to keep filling, you can keep filling it. And you can have it overlap. You want it wet and juicy. And same thing, I'm just going to bring this over here. I've got some more of this. Lay that on the side and just make a little teardrop going in kind of away from the branch, growing from the branch, or having that tip of your brush right at the branch area. So you've got these little sort of floral, I don't know, not floral, but leafy shapes. You can make a curve too, make them curve a little bit, but you're really just doing that by bending the brush a little bit. And you know what really works great for these is if you have a sumi brush. Sumi brushes will allow you to make all kinds of crazy shapes. And if you have those, you should try them because they're made out of, there's no nylon in them. And so they have this they keep their own shape. And they're just amazing to make leaves and things like that. So here's another little group of twiggy kind of stuff or greenery. So now we're going to so we've done that one. You can do this also with a larger, if you want to go a little larger, let's try it on this. Let's try it on this one over here. Let's try it on any side you want. Let's get really loose, pick up a lot of color, and take your brush and just do it like a blob, but go bigger. This time make it kind of loose, let that kind of scrub it. So I'm just doing a little scrubby. Kind of taking that brush and I'm kind of scrubbing it a little bit and laying it down with the point towards the center of the and you can even move it around too. So it's kind of like you're just sort of moving it around and you're creating these little greeneries, this kind of a nice green, loose watercolor effect. It's not too tight when you do that. See, just take it and just go on the ends. So I'm just kind of basically scrubbing with my brush. I'm doing the same thing. I'm laying it down, and then I'm just going to also drop some darker color right in the center. So you've got this loose, scrubby brush. It looks like kind of like it has like little bristles on the end or something.
What if you lose your point on your brush? Does that make sense? I have a sable brush and it's splaying. Does that make sense? Mine is.
Okay, so is yours a sable brush and it's splaying? The point isn't staying pointy?
Yeah, the point won't stay pointy when I'm trying.
That's not a good thing. Well, okay, so it may not have enough water on it. I'd have to look at it. But you may want to. Do you have any other brushes, Melissa, that you can try?
I do. I've got tons of brushes. I'll pull out another brush.
Because when one brush misbehaves, there's reasons. I mean, if it's an older brush and it has paint in the ferrule, that could cause splaying. Some sable brushes, my old really good ones, I mean, they used to be good. They just don't hold their shape for some reason. Maybe because the hairs have been eaten away by little unseen critters. That happens too. However, this is a good time to practice. And if you have a brush that says it's not doing what you want it to do, set it aside and get a different brush.
You got it. I know these are brand new brushes. It kills me from Rosemary and Company. I'm like, them. Yeah, because they usually have good brushes. So
So what you could do to, Melissa, is try that splaying may be to your advantage in some things, right? So
Yes.
don't throw that brush away. Just know what it does. Go, okay,
Yep.
so this is what it does. And it may do something really fabulous for what you want to do. It could make some great green flowers. It could make some great textures. So it's not a
Sure.
waste, but it isn't doing what you want. So try getting a brush that will behave a
Okay.
little bit more.
Thank you.
Sure. So what we're going to do is we're just going to scrub. So we're just making scrub and let the colors kind of blend together wet while they're wet. You can see I'm just making a loose sort of graduated green thing going here. So let's do some round leaves, something that's round. We want to see how it would look round. Round, like eucalyptus. Like we could do a eucalyptus stem, which I think would be fun. Like a sprig, eucalyptus sprigs are fun to try. You would do one that's a little bit more on the straighter side, so find one that's not really too curved. And if you don't have a line that's not straightish, then make one. And you take your greens, and as I remember, eucalyptus have kind of a grayish, they'd be beautiful with that Payne's gray. Oops, there it is. And a little touch of green. And not much green, just a little touch. And when you do a eucalyptus type shape, you start small at the top and you make a little oval. And I'm going to use the tip of my brush. I'm just going to make a little oval, kind of a little flying saucer. And then I'm going to go just kind of close to it and make another one. And I'm going to make them a little off center, off of each other, just and a little bit larger as I go down the stalk. And I'm just going to I'm not making them perfectly, perfectly shaped. I mean, you want it to look kind of natural. You can bring your colors. Let's see if I can grab a moon glow. That would be pretty. I'm just going to bring it and kind of darken it right in the center while it's still wet. So you can see I have these little kind of flying saucer things going here. And I'm going to do the same thing down. Just going to make a nice little oval-ish. It's kind of an oblique, long, oval type shape. And I'm just using my brush. And I want my edges to be rounded. I don't want them to be sharp. So I'm just going to kind of do rounded edges. And I'm going to do the same. And I could go faster and looser, just going down the thing. And this is like this would be considered oops, now I'm having them join too much, but you want them just to be separated. There we are. And then just take your stem color and bring it down. So this is one way you can do kind of a eucalyptus. You can see when I blended them, it doesn't look so eucalyptus, but when I keep them apart, it does. It has that really nice look. Try it again on another one just to see, on a different direction, just because you're making a really fun composition without even thinking about it. by changing up the directions of everything. Same thing, I'm going to start with a small little oval at the top and maybe even a dot. And then I'm just going to bring my ovals down, but I'm not going to let them touch this time. My random little ovals. Whoops, it touched. Uh-oh. Try to get them not to touch. And you can vary the size. You can kind of vary the angle just a little. That would be good, your little ovals. Just going down the stem. You can make them slightly off center. And as you go down, just make them a little bit bigger. This Payne's gray green combination is so really perfect for that color. So now I've got my little sprig of whatever that is. It's like a faux eucalyptus. And I'm just going to take that green color or whatever I had here, and I'm going to take these and join these together by just bringing my brush to join those little ovals together, reinforcing that stem. Plus I'm also darkening the center a little bit. So that's another little eucalyptus. We can do a third one if you want to do a third one. I think those are really fun. Let's do some round ones though. So we've got we've got some things going in here. So let's do some eucalyptus leaves. Now they are interesting. I'm going to use the same color that I had before. Eucalyptus leaves are round in shape. So we don't have to be perfect how we do this, but what we want to do is make a round And we just want to take our brush and create a round shape. Now it's kind of, you have to just kind of use it, go starting off in one side, making that sort of semicircle, and then bringing it, and just while it's still wet, move your brush around and scooch it around until you get the shape you want. You can get like a heart shape, you can get one with a little, we got like that. So you can kind of, you can manipulate it while it's still wet. You can change the shape. Once it dries, it's a little harder to change the shape, but you can do it while it's still wet. So I've got that one, and I'm going to just create a little sort of get the branch to go. And then as I remember, oh boy, I have to do this from memory. I don't have any reference photos, but reference photos are very helpful if you have them. I don't know why I didn't have one. So I'm going to make a stem here, and I'm just going to do another little rounded, however you do that round, and you can have them join each other. There we go, just a round shape, but just do it while it's, and that stem is too thick, so next time I'm going to do it a little bit thinner. This brush doesn't like to make fine lines as much as I'd like it to. So here I've got that going. I'm just going to make the leaf this time and not the stem, and I'm going to try a different approach. So make a third leaf, making in that round shape, and just kind of drag your brush with nice and wet and kind of move it around to make that round shape with the tip of it where the branch is going to have a slight, it will be narrowed just a little bit. So kind of like that. And you can also go the other direction. However you want these are just little rounded leaves. You can have them touch or not. This one's going to overlap that one a little bit. And I'm just going to do that. I'm going to do another sort of roundish leaf here. Maybe I'll keep them around the same size. I'm going to do one here, this time I'm just going really loose. And I'm going to have them kind of, while it's still wet, you want to just push that color outwards until you get the shape you want. And then I think I've got 5 leaves here, so that's probably enough. And now I'm going to take some brown because I need that brown to sort of make these things while these are still wet. I'm going to take that brown, and I hope I can get a nice fine line. If you're not sure, just take a little bit of water, take up some of the water off of that. And now you can rotate your paper to whatever's comfortable for your wrist to make that happen, but just make a really small brown that's not dark enough for you to see. There we go. And just kind of create your little branches or twigs, and then you can have them go off. You can do other. You can even take little. I can go off here, and I'm going to make another leaf behind that one. So you can make several layers, but I would let that one dry, or we'll see. I'm going to just do it anyway and see what happens. So these little round leaves. Here we go. I'm just going to do one kind of overlapping that one. And then afterwards, I can go in and make details later. So this is kind of a stylized eucalyptus. They're just round. So they and it looks kind of like eucalyptus when you're finished with it. It's amazing. You can also go over the stem if you have you don't have to just have them go off. You can actually take those leaves, and let's say I want to do one right in this center here. I can just go right in here in the middle and create that round shape. I can do another one here, and then I can just let them kind of blend together because that would look more kind of natural anyway. And then I'll just wait for those to dry, or you can just create your little stems. And of course, this does not want to be, there we are, just little lines that go up towards it. It will be just enough to give it that impression that it is, that it's all joined together. And then later I can add details. So that's the eucalyptus leaf. And let's see what else we've got. Got the long ones. So let's just keep filling in these branches that you made with leaves that you want to try again, like maybe the first set. Let's say this time using some different tones of greens, maybe even blues, whatever you like, however you want to do this, or throw yellow in, or go crazy and do some beautiful, just something different, like oh, I want a purple leaf. I can do a purple leaf. But this one, I'm going to bring this right here. I'm going to just bring a nice big fat leaf and vary the sizes too. Here we go. This one needs a big fat leaf right here. So I'm using the same brush, but I'm going to show you what the difference is with a different brush, just so you can see. This brush is a number 10 silver. It's a big brush. It holds a ton of water. Silver black velvets. They're like the juiciest. I think they're pretty on par with the nice moppy wet. You can get nice colors wet and saturated, and it holds a lot of colors right there. So now I've dipped it with mostly just like a light green, and I'm going to use this as a kind of an anchor here, and I'm going to start, I'm just going to press, and I'm going to make myself a nice big bold leaf with like kind of like with that center. I want that center to be flat, and I want the outside to be curved. And I can just add a little purple. I'm just going to go a lot of purple here. There we are. Something different. And I'm going to just leave that, and then I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing on the other side. This time with a little bolder color, I think. Which that one is, I don't know that color. Oh, this is an interesting color. This is called green gold. Ooh. This is, I think, Daniel Smith green gold. So I'm going to start my leaf here. I'm going to just press out, but go, just have it touch that center. And I'm just going to drag it, and I'm going to leave it a little rough. I want it to be kind of loose at the end. But that gives me a beautiful dimensional leaf shape already. That's sort of that center is already done. And I could add maybe some of that purple at the top of that little section I just did, or the segment. I can add, I think I'm going to leave this one alone. And I could take my stem, and I could just reinforce it a little bit. It's a nice wet wash here, and now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to make I think that's my favorite leaf so far, is this, it's like the half, I don't know what to call this, but what do we call this one? I'm going to take this here, and I'm just going to take a little stem, and I'm going to do the same. I'm going to start with this point, and I'm going to just press, making that inside of that flat, and the outside stays curved, and then just making a nice little point, a little rough side here. And I'm going to take a little, what's this color called? This is Payne's Gray. I'm just going to add a little Payne's Gray and that same purple wherever I have it. Here it is. Just add a little purple in there, and just really let that be dramatic, and let those kind of dance together on their own. If you find that you have a big puddle, just take some water, water, and then dry it off, your brush off completely, and then just take your brush and siphon off some of it if you need. You can always do that. There's ways to correct an area that's just too wet. And it actually acts like a little straw, your brush ends, when you do that. If you dampen it first, take that excess water off, and then just put it into the color, and it will work as a straw. Like right here is too much water, so I'm just going to drop it in, and it will suck it up just like the straw does. It's amazing. And now I'm going to do my other section of the leaf with that beautiful yellow green gold. I'm just going to take that and do the same thing. Start here at the base and be at a point, and I'm not going to even let it touch this time. Just going to drag it, but it barely touches. Maybe at the end I'll have it touch. And then, so I've got this nice little sort of the inside of the leaf, whatever that's called. It's already done. I don't have to do it. I don't have to paint it over or anything. So we can reinforce that stem by just joining the wet areas with the dry and letting them kind of fall down the stem. And then you can do the same thing. You can just fatten that stem a little bit, that little sketch that you did. And now you've got these really fun leaves. And this is something that we could do. It's almost noon now, but I'd like you to just keep doing this. And I didn't have time to do this, but we could do this at another time. Another thing I wanted to share with you, if let's say you wanted to add details to your leaves, I'm going to give you, after everything's dry, you can start to detail, and you can take the same brush or a different brush. Like I love this one for making lines. little fine lines, or like I said, a sumi brush is great. If you want to just add some detail, you can go a little darker. It doesn't have to be too dark. I'm going to take this same Payne's gray color. I'm going to go a little bit darker. And it doesn't have to be too dark because you're going to basically be glazing and you're going to create new, basically dimension here. And I'm just going to take from this little point, I'm just going to do a little lines inside the center of these little guys, just very fast and spontaneous. I'm not trying to be too labored. I'm going to using my shoulder again. Once again, you get nicer lines when you don't, when you're not using your wrist as much. So I'm making these nice little fine lines to give that fern more detail, kind of a bit heavier at the center. And that one, if you have a boo-boo, just take it and dab it up and do it over, because my line went off crazy. With this fern, I'm going to just reinforce that center so that the leaves have some support. The leaves will not go on that thin of a support. So I'm just going to bring that down and fatten the bottom just a little bit like that. So that's one way you can get detail. Same thing on the eucalyptus. If I want to have little lines, like these little guys need a little bit of something here. So I'm just going to go kind of like this and just create like just some line work, however you do it. Now, this one I wasn't happy with, so I just erased it. So what you could do is you can make shadows. Like let's say you have a leaf overlapping another leaf. This leaf is behind, I'm going to make this one behind those other leaves. And this will give it, there we go, I'm just going to make it right behind there. So it's darker and it's going behind. So that will make your leaves look more real anyway and more dimensional. Here we go. Same thing, this one's going to be behind it. So I've got some depth going on. This one I think is going to be behind too. So what I'm going to do is accentuate I'm going to make this darker, but I'm going to have the branches be the ones coming forward. So I'm just going to keep the branches light. And I'm just going to darken that leaf shape. It's a little more detailed, but I think it'll look better in the long run. There we go, like that. So you can just shade and create dimension for your greenery. And you don't have to be too tight. You can just kind of make it loose. And that's kind of how you would do that. If you want to just do half of your leaf, you want it to have just a little more color, you can just do, oops, that one. You see what I just did? I dropped it big time. I put a big blob. So I just dabbing it up and it's not there now. So I've got too much water on that. So I'm unloading it. And now I'm just going to do just one half of this leaf is going to be darkened. And you can do this with all of your leaves, create shadows, basically after the first layer is dry. And this is something you just keep practicing. And if you have little blobs, like I see a little blob here that was a boo-boo, I'm going to just keep doing some leaves. And it's almost time, but I really would love to see what you're all doing. And I fill this page, and at the end of, maybe in an hour, you'd have this totally full motif of, you can use this as a reference for your future leaf making. And also, for next week, I don't know what I have next week, but I'm going to switch it up a little bit. For next week, I want us to do a wreath with our leaves that we practiced this week. So I'm going to change up whatever it says on the schedule, ignore. I'll just go ahead and I think it'd be fun to do this really gorgeous leaf next week, since now we've got this practice in. So you can kind of see I went really loose with this, and it's still fun. You get lots of ideas. And what I'll do is I'll post this up on our page so that you can have these as a reference. And when I finish this one, also I'll post it. And of course, I'd love to see what everybody else is doing.